Look at this! This is what we found in your car!
You are in serious trouble. Tell us who you are working with.
You know that feeling when you're caught in a storm, but you're not allowed to let anyone know you're wearing the biggest raincoat in the world? That was Agent Zara Hayes that Tuesday afternoon. She was driving a beat-up Ford sedan, the kind of government fleet vehicle nobody looks twice at, through the too perfect, quiet streets of Ashford Heights, heading toward a critical rendezvous. Critical is an understatement. This was the culmination of an 8-month deep dive into systemic corruption at the Metro North Police Precinct. Zara was on the final leg of Operation Gavel, the one that mattered. At 2:47 p.m., she saw the flashing lights, red and blue, a color combination that, for most people, means pull over and cooperate. But for Zara, an experienced federal agent, meant showtime. She was running point on a major anti-narcotics, anti-corruption task force, and in 13 minutes, she was supposed to be in a secure federal building. But first, this traffic stop. She pulled over, smooth as glass, hands on the wheel, totally prepared. The officer who approached was Sergeant Vince, the Hammer Mallory. He had the look of a guy who peaked in high school, still reliving the glory days through the power of a badge. Mallory's personnel file was notorious, thick with complaints about stops in the wealthy parts of town, always ending with convenient drug discoveries. His partner, a young guy named Officer Ben Carter, followed reluctantly. Ben was new, idealistic, and visibly uncomfortable. He'd started making little notes in his personal journal about Mallory, not brave enough to report yet, but too honest to ignore the creeping dread. Mallory strode up, his hand hovering over his holster, that familiar, practiced swagger. What's a jalopy like this and a woman like you doing in this neighborhood, anyway? The sneer was audible, even without the body cam audio. It wasn't just a question. It was an accusation, a territorial pissing match. What Mallory didn't know was that while his cameras were recording, so were 3 discrete devices woven into Zara's blazer, capturing his tone, his posture, his every move. Zara looked him dead in the eye, keeping her voice level. "Officer, I believe there's a misunderstanding. Don't you dare lecture me," Mallory barked, slamming his fist onto the roof. The sound was deafening, a cheap theatrical flourish. "License and registration. Now, and keep your mouth shut." When he saw the document's government fleet, a non-local address, his expression soured. "Federal employee. Sure, you are. And I'm an astronaut. Step out. I smell marijuana." Ben Carter shifted, clearing his throat. "Sergeant, I don't smell anything." Mallory froze, turning his head slowly, like a serpent. "Excuse me? You need to get your nose checked, rookie. Or maybe you need to remember who's senior here." Zara watched this little drama unfold, filing it away. This wasn't just a traffic stop. It was a performance of power, specifically designed to intimidate. She tried one last time, invoking her protocol. "Officer, I really must insist you call your supervisor. I have a critical federal assignment." That was the trigger. Mallory exploded. "Federal assignment. You're going to be assigned to a jail cell." He wrenched the door open, forcing her out, spinning her against the hot metal of the sedan. He went through her pockets, found her burner phone, saw the urgent federal text Agent Hayes, target confirmed. Proceed with caution, and dismissed them as drug dealer nonsense. He tossed the phone onto the curb. Then came the move. The cameras were rolling, but only Zara's angle and the high-definition dash cam would catch it. Mallory knelt, ostensibly searching the car. That practiced, invisible motion, the tiny plastic baggie of white powder slipped from his left palm, disappearing into the glove compartment among the insurance forms. "Aha!" Mallory roared, emerging, waving the evidence. "Looks like my nose was right after all, doesn't it, Thorne? Possession of a controlled substance. You're under arrest." He slapped the cuffs on her. Click. The sound echoed the crushing finality he felt every time he ruined a life. But Zara, in those cold steel cuffs, felt a strange lightness. The trap had sprung. She had the proof. The ride to the Metro North precinct was silent, save for Mallory's self-congratulatory chatter on the radio. Clean bust. Dispatch found the narcotics in plain view during a legitimate search. Ben Carter, driving, stared straight ahead. He was watching his partner not just lie, but weave a professional, calculated web of perjury. He glanced in the rearview mirror. Zara, handcuffed, was looking out the window, completely serene. She was waiting, not defeated. When they got to the precinct, Desk Sergeant Lydia Cruz, a seasoned officer who'd seen it all, began the intake process. But when she started cataloging Zara's personal effects, the high-end leather portfolio, the credit cards with no visible limit, she paused. Then she reached the bottom of the purse and felt the rigid edge of something metallic. Lydia pulled it out. A badge, not the brassy, simple kind. A shield. She checked the ID, scanned it quickly through the federal database, and the color drained from her face. "Mallory," she yelled, urgency cutting through the precinct's hum. "Get over here now." Mallory swaggered over. "What's the big deal, Lydia?" "She's a crack dealer who thinks she's important." Lydia didn't speak. She just held up the badge and the ID. Drug Enforcement Administration. Special Agent Zara Hayes. Anti-Corruption Task Force. "Impossible," Mallory stammered, his face going pale. "It's a fake." "It's not fake, Vance," Lydia whispered. "I just ran the security clearance. It's real. You just arrested a D agent." Just as the realization settled like a bucket of cement, the station descended into chaos. The main lines exploded. Federal agencies don't wait for internal affairs. Agents Damon Carter, Zara's boss, and Leah Brooks walked in, their quiet efficiency commanding the entire room. "We are here for Agent Hayes," Damon announced, his voice carrying the full weight of the U.S. government. Mallory, completely undone, sputtered. "She's a drug dealer. I found cocaine." Leah Brooks stepped forward, her voice sharp as glass. "Sergeant Mallory, Agent Hayes was undercover, investigating corruption in this precinct. It's a meeting. She was driving too. She was running the final federal operation. You just provided us with the most clear-cut case of evidence planting and racial profiling we've seen in years." Then, the moment of truth for the young officer. Ben Carter stepped forward, taking a deep, shaky breath. "Agent Carter, I need to report something officially. I witnessed Sergeant Mallory plant evidence in Agent Hayes' vehicle." The statement landed like a grenade. Mallory roared, "You son of a... We were partners. We were partners, and I watched you destroy innocent lives for sport." Ben shot back, the fear gone, replaced by righteous anger. "I've been documenting your behavior. The notes, the dates, the falsified reports. I have everything." Damon Carter unlocked Zara's cuffs. "Sorry we were late, Agent Hayes. Traffic was brutal." A classic, dark joke that broke the tension. Zara stood up, rubbing her wrists. She looked at Mallory, the man who had dismissed her, humiliated her, and tried to ruin her. "Special Agent Zara Hayes," she said, her voice commanding the silence. "I've been investigating your arrest patterns for 8 months. Your traffic stop yesterday was the final piece of evidence we needed." She reached into her returned purse, pulled out her second badge, the Federal Anti-Corruption Task Force 1. "You were so consistent in your racial bias. You created a statistical signature that caught our attention." Ben Carter's testimony, the high-resolution video footage of the planting, the audio recordings, and the damning 847% higher rate of drug arrests against minority drivers. The case was airtight. The system Mallory had weaponized was now turning on him. The federal investigation was swift and merciless. 23 wrongful convictions were immediately flagged for review. Mallory, stripped of his badge and dignity, sat across from Internal Affairs Detective Samira Khan, looking like a scarecrow. His lawyer was already talking plea deals. "Let's review frame 61, Sergeant Mallory Kahn said, calmly sliding a high-resolution photo across the table. "Your hand enters the glove compartment." She slid another. "Frame 73. Your hand exits, now empty. The evidence is conclusive. But this isn't just about one bag event. It's about a pattern." She showed him the statistical analysis, chart after chart, proving his systematic targeting. Then Ben Carter walked in. "I should have reported it sooner," Ben admitted to Kahn. "I was scared. But I watched him plant that cocaine. I watched him laugh about it. He played the recording he'd secretly made. Mallory, bragging. A trick is making sure they can't prove it didn't belong to them. A little coke goes a long way toward teaching respect." Mallory's lawyer closed his briefcase. The fight was over. 3 months later, the courtroom was packed. Sergeant Vince Mallory, no, just Vince Mallory, stood before Judge Deloney, his uniform replaced by an orange jumpsuit. "To Mallory," the judge stated, her voice heavy with authority. "You have pleaded guilty to 47 counts of civil rights violations, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. 23 lives were shattered by your actions, not by criminals, but by you." Zara sat in the back, watching. Next to her was Ben Carter, now Sergeant Ben Carter, promoted for his courage. Mallory rose to speak, shaking. "I'm sorry," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. "I was wrong. I let my prejudices, my arrogance control me." It was a hollow apology, but it was enough for the court. Judge Deloney sentenced him to 18 months in federal prison, forfeiture of his pension, and a permanent ban from law enforcement. The gavel fell, a heavy, final sound. Outside, Zara Hayes spoke to the media. "This case proves that accountability is not optional. Sergeant Carter showed extraordinary courage in breaking the blue wall of silence, and that courage saved lives." Ben Carter, uncomfortable under the lights, added, "I hope other officers learn from my mistake. The hardest part wasn't reporting Mallory. The hardest part was living with myself when I stayed silent. The badge belongs to the community that trusts you with it." The reforms in the Metro North Police Precinct were immediate and deep. 67% drop in complaints, a 43% drop in use of force incidents, and an almost revolutionary community oversight board. The 23 wrongfully convicted people were not only freed, they received $4.2 million in compensation. Their records wiped clean. Zara Hayes returned to the D, but her work in Ashford Heights became the blueprint. She now teaches other agents. Sometimes the corruption is so arrogant, it practically lays out the evidence for you. So, here's the thought I want to leave you with. Mallory thought he was untouchable. He thought his badge was a magic cloak of invisibility. But his own consistent cruelty, his 847% pattern of bias, was his undoing. Think about that in your own life. Where are you seeing patterns of unfairness, of abuse, of a borrowed authority, whether it's a bad HOA, a toxic boss, or something on the street? When you see injustice, do you stay silent and let the pattern continue, or do you find your Ben Carter courage? Hit the comments below and tell me, what is the cost of staying silent? And what small piece of evidence, that one pattern, do you think needs to be exposed right now? Let's talk about it.